Have you ever felt that deep sense of relief when you finally had a word for something? Like, oh, that's what this is, this feeling, this way of doing things. You had something to describe it. It's a category, a name, and it feels like exhaling and everything makes sense. Like your shoulders drop a little bit, like you're not the only one, and there's context now. There's language, and language can feel like safety. But have you ever also wondered, when does a label help us understand ourselves and when does it quietly start to define us? Hey friend, welcome back to Loose Threads and Stitches. I'm Christen from IC Stars Quilting. This is our cozy corner of the week where creativity and real life meet. So grab a project or just settle in. This is episode 6 of the Enough chapter, this little series where we've been gently untangling the pressure to always be more productive, more capable, more figured out. We've talked about moving targets. We've talked about capacity. We've talked about the stories that we build. And today we're stepping into something a little bit more nuanced, and that is the role of labels and how they shape the way that we see ourselves. So if you have missed any of those episodes, I highly encourage you to go back and check those out. There's some really good knowledge in there and some really thought-provoking things. I honestly was not quite sure how this podcast series would be received in the creative world, but I have had such good positive feedback, and I love that these questions that I'm asking are really kind of thought-provoking, and they're encouraging a lot of you to look at things a little bit deeper. It really makes my heart happy, and I'm so thankful that you're here today. So if you're enjoying these conversations, it would mean so much to me if you popped over to Apple Podcasts or Spotify and you leave a 5-star review for me. It helps this show grow, and I really do love hearing what is resonating with you. So let's start here. Language can be incredibly compassionate. There's something powerful about being able to say, oh, that's what this is called. This has a name. But what that does is, in your brain, it takes something that feels messy or confusing or isolating, and it gives it shape. It gives it context, and it tells you this is not random, and this isn't just you. And that really matters because confusion can often create shame. Okay, it's kind of the unknown, that I'm not sure what this is. I don't know if this is right or not, right? But clarity can soften it. Labels can help us feel less alone, less overwhelmed, less like we're doing something wrong. And that kind of relief, that's real, that's valid, and that's important. But here's where it gets a little bit more layered, because labels don't just describe, right? They also explain. And our brains, oh, they love explanations, okay? We want to understand. We want to feel things. We want to understand why we feel the way that we feel. Why we struggle where we struggle, why things feel hard. And labels often become part of that explanation. But explanations, as we know, are really powerful, right? Not just because they bring clarity, but because they start to shape our identity. And there's a difference, a really important difference that I want you to know here. So between saying, this is something that I experience, and saying, this is who I am. One leaves some room in there. The other one can quietly close it off and just, it is what it is, right? One leaves a little bit of room for change, for opportunity, for growth. One just quietly closes it. So that's the difference between saying, this is something that I'm experiencing, and saying, this is who I am. Okay, so let's think about that for a second. If you say to yourself, I'm struggling with focus right now, versus I am somebody who can't focus, those feel very differently in your body when you speak them. One of them, the first one, feels very temporary. It feels like it's contextual, right? Like this is something that you can move through. The second one feels fixed. It feels decided. And we often teach kids this the same too. What their words have real power behind them. They have meaning. So be careful what you speak, right? Once it becomes fixed, it feels like a conclusion, right? That's it. There's no room for change. And our brains tend to live inside the sentences that we repeat. So if a sentence feels permanent, our behavior often follows. Not because it's true forever, because we all know that deep down people change, they grow, they shift who they are in little patterns over time. And that's just the way that it is. But because identity and what you believe to be your identity is a very powerful thing. So this is where labels can sometimes become a ceiling, not intentionally, not maliciously, but very subtly, okay? Because when something becomes part of your identity, it can start to feel like a boundary, kind of just like, well, this is just how I am. And again, sometimes that brings comfort. And sometimes that removes pressure, but sometimes it also removes possibility. And I think that this is where we need to bring in the gentle curiosity, not judgment, not rejection, just simple awareness, okay? And I want to be really clear here. There is nothing wrong with language that brings you clarity. There's nothing wrong with seeking help. There is nothing wrong with naming patterns in your life. I completely support all of those. And I think that they're all very, very healthy. They can be incredibly healing. But there's a soft question that we can ask. And I want to bring this up to you today. And that is this word helping me understand myself? Or is it quietly limiting what I believe is possible? Is it opening a door? Or is it closing one? And sometimes it might be doing both, right? There is no like right or wrong, black or white here. I'm just kind of bringing up these ideas, and maybe you'll feel something kind of hit home, right? And that's usually your inner self just kind of poking back at you going, hey, we need to do a little bit more thinking on this, right? And I want to tie this back into quilting because, we are creatives and most of us are quilters or want to be quilters somewhere in that arena, right? Because patterns are a really good metaphor for this. A pattern, like a quilting pattern or a sewing pattern of any sort, it gives you structure, it gives you direction, it helps you start, but you're never locked into it. You can resize it. You can change out the fabrics. You can combine it with something else. Now, you can even completely take parts of it and run with that and ignore the rest of it, okay? The pattern serves you, not the other way around. And I should know because I am so, so guilty of taking a pattern and being like, this is great. I think the designer is fabulous. I love this, but I am going to take this and I'm going to completely change it. I use it as a starting off point. I don't usually do everything that way. And that's just like the creative person in me. Like I like to have that base and to grow from it. Now I do sometimes follow patterns. I don't want to say that like I'm a rule breaker all the time, but I do like to put my own twist on things, right? And I think that labels can work the same way. They can guide you, they can support you, they can offer clarity, but they were never meant to hold your entire future. If this conversation is resonating with you right now, this mix of creativity and real life growth, and you're nodding up and down with me as I'm talking to you today, I want you to know that you would feel so at home inside the Stitch Sister Inner Circle. It's a space where we have these deeper conversations like this, friend to friend, alongside quilting and inspiration and fabric galore, okay? Encouragement and women who truly get it, okay? Your seat is always there waiting for you, my friend. I will save you a spot in this group. If you're interested, check out the show notes below this podcast for more information. So maybe the goal isn't to reject labels. Okay, let's think this through for a minute, okay? Let's let this language stay flexible here. Maybe the goal is to hold labels a little bit more loosely, to let them describe without letting them define, to let them support without letting them confine, okay? To say, this helps me understand where I am without assuming this is where I will always be. Because you're allowed to change, you're allowed to grow, and you are allowed to surprise yourself. So here's something else gently that I want you to sit with today. Is there a word or a label that has brought you relief? And also, is there a place where it might be quietly shaping your limits? Not in like a heavy way, just in an honest way. So, think about that. And then I want you to also remember you're allowed to understand yourself. You are allowed to name your patterns. You're allowed to use language that brings you peace, but you are not required to conform yourself to only those labels. You are not required to stay the same. You are not required to live inside one definition forever, okay? And you are not required to shrink yourself to fit a word, even if that word once was of great help to you, okay? You can carry clarity and still leave room for expansion. You can honor where you are right now and still believe in where you're going. You are not a fixed sentence. You're a story that is still being written. And I think that you have a beautiful, beautiful story to tell inside you today. Thank you for being with me here today and for hanging out. If this episode has made you feel seen, do me a favor and share it with a friend or leave a review. I would love to hear from you. And if you have some words to share with me today, things that are helping you grow, or possibly words that are holding you back and you want to let go of them, leave me some comments down below, because I would love to respond back to you and just kind of keep this conversation going a little bit longer. But I appreciate you listening to the show today. Thank you so much for tuning in. My name is Christen with I See Stars Quilting, and you have been listening to the Loose Threads and Stitches podcast. I hope that you have a wonderful rest of your week, and I'll meet you back here next week.